live on YouTube. I'm going to be answering astrology, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you guys doing? Hey, Sam. Hey, Felipe. What's going on? What is the 411? Let me just adjust to this. What do you guys want to know about? What should we talk about? What is new? You have a good question for me. Oh, I like good questions. Okay, let's see. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody. I'm answering astrology questions and metaphysical questions. Hey, Venus Scales, how are you doing? If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. I will go in order, so I will get to everyone. How do I feel about sidereal astrology? I mean, I don't mind it. I think there's truth in everything. I think, hey, Furzy, yes, I'm doing well, things as well. Yeah, so back to the sidereal question. Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, sidereal is very complex. I like the fact that they have like, you know, those things like the hasta and this for like all of like the increments. So like that about sidereal. And then they have all the charts. They have D9 and then D10 and then all the charts. So it's good for that. And then for divination, I don't know, it's hard to say. For divination, I always say the same thing, like you have to see it yourself, right? And you have to basically see like what was happening when last time Pluto was in Aquarius. Okay, well, this is my prediction for when Pluto is in Aquarius now. Or for them, it's probably gonna be Pluto is in Capricorn. Okay, what's happening for Pluto in Capricorn now? Some people say that the real astrology is the sidereal astrology. It depends, right? It depends what you're using it for. I think there's truth in everything. I think Placidus is a good way to learn about ourselves because the thing is, you'll see in Placidus, a lot of things are very, very on point, right? When you look at your life and you look at mainly the fourth house, I would say will give you a good idea. Fourth house, 10th house, the ascendant and then the descendant. Let's see. What's the current astro weather right now? Good question. I don't know. You know, surprisingly, I try not to follow it as much. I know we're in Scorpio season. I like Scorpio season. Pluto is in Capricorn. It's not retrograde anymore, which is also nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We had the eclipses take place. Those were intense. But that's the thing. It's like sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't feel it. So it's nice to kind of, I guess, try to live like the serendipitous life. Let's see. Let me just go back up to Felipe's question. Let's see, you said Sun, Mars, Cazimi within 7 seconds of each other. Can I talk about this aspect? You can't find any material on it. That's something that I would definitely have to probably make a whole series on. Venus Scales has a good Mercury placement. Let's see, you said Mercury conjunct Mars in the 11th house in Virgo. It is, you could just go into overthinking. Okay, so just keep that in mind. When you have Mercury in Virgo, you could potentially go into overthinking, like going to the point of like, too much analysis of the crown, right? Where you're just like really analytical of everything. And then you could even be critical and then you might not act on it. And then you're just like thinking. You could get stuck up there. So figure out ways to either act on your ideas or be more grounded in the physical plane and the physical reality. That's really all I can say. And then conjuncting the Mars, awesome. Go getter, right? So you're gonna act on your ideas. And it's in Virgo. I like the Mars in Virgo. Like I like Mars in the Earth placements because it kind of gives like a grounded approach to your ambition, you know? Especially in Virgo, it's like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to create this like plan and a schedule and I'm going to do it all, you know, all day, every day until I get to the goal. Very nice, you know? 11th house though, once again, you might go into the crown, right? Especially Mercury in the 11th, it's very crowning, these energies, right? You go into the crown, you're constantly thinking, you know, dreaming, not so much dreaming. I wouldn't say it's too much of a dreamy energy, just very analytical, you know? Oh my gosh, I saw a funniest post today. Have you guys ever seen those like, you know, when like the computer wants to make sure you're not a robot? Anyways, and then it's like, select all the traffic lights, and then there's like a little edge of the traffic light. I died. It was like, the person was like sweating and like trying to like, be like, do I select this as a traffic light or do I not select it as a traffic light? It was just really funny. So that's kind of like Mercury and Virgo vibes. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, questions about your natal charts. So feel free to comment below, you guys. I'm just going in order. Some books that I would recommend for someone wanting to dive deeper into astrology. Everyone always asks me about the astrology books. The thing is, you can learn the basics of astrology anywhere, right? So you can learn it anywhere. You know, this placement means this, that means that. this aspect means this. Like you can literally learn that anywhere. But then it's all about putting it together is what I think might be the more challenging aspect of it. So it's hard to say, right? Because for me, I feel into it, right? So it kind of helps me feel into people's energies and figure out what's going on with them. So in terms of like that aspect of it is hard to say, but for like learning about astrology, you can literally learn it anywhere. Any book is going to teach you the basics of astrology. I do have book recommendations on my channel, but the book recommendations that I have are more so for esoterica, mysticism, theology, like the spiritual roots of it all. So which is nice to know also, because it's like the more information that you know, it also helps you be a really good psychic as well. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Nature's Moon. Yay, thank you. I'm happy that you are here as well. How are you doing? Sag in Sun, Mercury and Mars. So you have all of that in Sagittarius. You also have Chiron and Leo in your midheaven. What is the energy like? You have Chiron and Leo. That's really interesting. That's kind of like a wounding in the inner child going on there. So something to watch out for is like Chiron and Leo is like, you're always going to look for attention, but it might go into like the shadow of attention where you're like willing to do anything to get attention. So just keep that in mind, because it's like, you know, there's a healthy amount of attention, right? Everybody wants attention at the end of the day, right? I think it's like a human thing, but it's like with Leo energy, it's like with them, it's like all publicity is good publicity. That's like the Leo vibe, right? So whether it's good attention or bad attention, as long as it's on them, they are happy, right? And then you have it in your Chiron, so you're healing through that, okay? So you might go into the wounding of that aspect of yourself. So just something to keep in mind for Chiron and Leo. But anytime you're doing anything creative or Leo-like, you're doing a presentation, you're being funny, making people laugh, maybe it's acting or theater or like these types of things, that's going to be a very healing experience for you. And then you have it in your midheaven. So it's like your public life, right? Your public image is very healing for you, okay? So it's gonna have to be something where you're seen, okay? Something where you're seen. Depends on the whole chart. You know, you do say you have a lot of Sag energy in there. So something like maybe like blogging about your travels, or like talking about philosophies and the higher mind, or like, you know, those people who are like motivational speakers, like that's very much like that, especially Mercury and Sag. Mercury and Sag though could become very preachy. I will say that much. Like, you have to find that fine line where it's like you're engaging the audience, you're super passionate, you're like, yeah, you know that movie, I think it's like Yes Man, where he's like, everybody say yes. Like that's very much like Mercury and Sag vibes, right? Where it's like you can motivate in that way, but you can also go into the preacher, you know, where it's like a little bit like, you know, dogmatic. So just something to watch out for. Personal trainer, there you go. Yes, that's the vibe. Yeah, especially Sagittarius energy. Sagittarius deals with like the quads, the thigh area. So it's like you'll see these people, and also they're like half human, half horse, right? It's the centaur. So you'll see them. They're going to be very interested in anything to do with like athletics in any way, shape, or form. And it's fire, right? So any fire anyone has in their natal chart, whether it's in Aries or whether it's in Leo or whether it's in Sag, like it's very beneficial for these people to be on the go, right? To be doing something and moving and getting the fire energy out. Because sometimes what happens, especially for like fiery people, it's like if that energy doesn't go out, yes, it can kind of like bottle up inside and turn into anger. Like there's that aspect of it, but sometimes you can even go into overthinking. I've noticed that with Aries people when they're like in the excess of that fire energy. I guess in Ayurveda, I think it would be called Vata. If anyone knows, you guys can comment below. Vata is just like that fiery body type, right? Where it's like, you know, you're excited and you just have a lot of fire energy within. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that that resonated. Yay. Yeah, Sagittarius needs to just, you know, be on the go, right? So it's like, for example, you know, for Sagittarius people, even though for them it is all about the higher mind and higher learning, putting them into like a classical, you know, classroom setting might not work for them because they need to be doing things fast, right? So something where it's like 8 hours a day, 2 + 2 is 4. 4 + 4 is 8. Like that's boring for the Sag person, right? So for them, they're probably gonna learn more so on the go. And then when it comes to like school and stuff like that, like, you know, at the end of the day, you still have the school system, like it is what it is, right? But you'll see some of them might, you know, get like maybe their degrees or whatever later on, right? Where kind of like that fire subsides. In the earlier part of their life, they're kind of like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do my dance certificate and then I want to go and do this type of thing and whatever, right? So, you know, they just learn in a different way, I guess you can say. Also, like, not to mention they bounce off of Gemini, right? So it's like a lot of information, but again, it's the higher mind. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Can I explain, so this is for reflection, can I explain Leo Sun and Mercury in the 7th trine, Sagittarius, Pluto in the 11th? Is your Pluto in Sagittarius as well? You have Leo Sun. I've noticed with Leo Sun, sometimes they can either have narcissistic fathers or Leo energy anywhere is really, you know, unconsciously trying to get the attention of the father. They're unconsciously trying to make the intention. They're unconsciously trying to make the father proud. There's that aspect of Leo energy as well. So yeah, there's that aspect of Leo energy. Let's see what else is going on in here. Scorpio and Capricorn stellium, you've probably been through it and you're probably like super desensitized. Nikki says, can you tell me about the progressed Pluto in Scorpio the success? Oh, interesting, your Pluto has progressed. I've never seen a progressed Pluto. That is so interesting. So maybe you were like right at the end of Pluto when you were born. So can you tell me, or hold on, you were at the end, has it progressed into Scorpio or is it progressing out of Scorpio? Let me know. Kenneth, how are you doing? I'm just looking at your question now. You said, hi Barb, you have a question to do with rising signs. You've often been trying to figure out the rising sign of a former American wrestler called Stacy Keibler. Can I identify by looking at images of them? You know, with rising signs, it's really interesting. Sometimes when I'm trying to figure out someone's rising sign, you can do a few things, okay? You can try to see people who look like them. Okay, so I had someone that I was trying to figure out what their rising sign was, and they looked like this one actor, and I was like, okay, let me look at what that actor's rising sign is. And then I was like, oh my gosh, yes, they look like that is their rising sign. So then I looked, you know, the rising sign combination in their natal chart, and then I looked at the houses, and then I was like, this makes so much sense. So yeah, you can do it that way. You could do it that way. You can try to see, you know, someone who looks like them, you know, and see if that resonates. Other ways, you know, there's people who actually rectify it. I will say that much. Like there's people who do rectifications of natal charts, you know, when you're really trying to figure out what is someone's, you know, time of birth or like rectified time of birth, because sometimes it's like by the time, you know, the doctors wrote down the time of birth, maybe 10 minutes passed or whatever it is, right? So you could also get a rectified, you know, time of birth as well. So that's another way you can do it. And also you can kind of look to see what were like key events in that person's life. And sometimes like personally, like I don't do the rectification thing. I just like really think about it for a long period of time. And it kind of comes through claircognizantly for me. So it's like it comes through in a way where it's like, okay, this makes sense. Like it fits, and then the houses fit. And then, yeah, that's kind of like something that takes place. But yeah, you have actual people who can rectify birth charts. So if you're asking me, could I identify just by looking at a picture? No, but I would kind of go down that analytical route if I were to try to figure out their birth time or their rising sign. I would be like, okay, who does this person look like? And then I kind of look to see, okay, what is like that maybe actor's or public person's rising sign? Okay, and then I put it into the time and I'm like, okay. And then you kind of shift the minutes, right? Because you'll see when you start playing around I don't know, one thing I haven't figured out yet is it always the same time for Libra rising, for example? Is it always the same time for Virgo rising, same time for Scorpio rising? I still haven't gone to that point of calculations yet, but you'll see the more you start to like add minutes, it changes. This is why the time is important, because you'll see that sometimes it changes even every 10 minutes, like the houses. Let's see. Hey everyone, oh my gosh, thanks for being in the live. But now, okay, let me screenshot that, Kenneth, because I'm just curious, so I'm gonna look up that person later. The Stacy Keibler person. Let's see, what's my sun and my Mercury? Oh, I love to play this game. Okay, try to guess, if you guys know, because some people know I have mentioned it previously, so try to guess Felipe, and then I'll tell you after. And then if you guys know, don't tell the other people. You said, hey, can I talk about 29 degrees Leo moon? Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I've seen like people who have certain placements, like they're kind of meant to break through like the fear around that placement, if that makes sense. So like Leo moon is like desperately wanting to be seen, but they could struggle to be seen at the same time. I find that Leo struggles with their solar plexus a lot. So they struggle a lot with like their confidence, their identity, their, you know, like self-worth in a way. They really do rely on like energy, let's say, of the audience. So it's like Leo moon energy, for example, might struggle to like, let's say they want to teach like, I don't know, like a Pilates class or whatever, right? It's like, you know, like let's say they put up the class and like no one comes. That's really going to be hard for like a Leo moon person, right? But it's like, let's say you have like 2 people or 3 people or 3 people, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, all these people are here. And then, you know, you feed off that energy, right? So it's that chicken and the egg vibe with like the Leo energy overall. But in the moon, it's on the emotional level, right? So it's like, it might hit you even harder, right? Because it's emotionally, right? So you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like, this is kind of happening unconsciously with the Leo energy overall, right? But it's like the more people that gather, you feed off more of that energy, and then you might, you know, do even funnier things or be even more theatrical or be even more excited, right? So it's like maybe in the beginning phases of things, kind of trying to fabricate that for yourself, like picturing maybe a lot of people there, you know, to kind of try to feed off of that, right? Because it's like Leo has a lot of, you know, shine, right? Like they're here to shine overall. They're the sun. But it's like when they don't get that recognition right away, or the crowd isn't there right away, you know, they might kind of go into their shell and go into hiding, and Leo's not meant to be in hiding, but it's that chicken and the egg vibe. So it's like you have to figure out a way to kind of trick yourself in the beginning, because it's like, if we're going to be realistic, in the beginning, no one's going to come. And that's just what it is, right? So it's like, it is what it is. So you kind of have to just accept that and get over that hurdle, right? So it's that rejection also. Sometimes Leo really struggles with rejection. And I find that what happens also with Leo energy is like they tend to settle. So they tend to settle because of, you know, the fear of rejection or having been rejected. So it's like the more you do something, you kind of desensitize yourself to that thing, right? So if your fear is rejection, continue doing that thing, right? Continue having those classes where nobody comes, and then you don't care anymore. Whatever, you got the evening off, you know what I mean? Let's see what else you guys saying in here. I seem like a Virgo or Capricorn Mercury too. Oh my gosh, thank you. Let's see. Talk fast. Oh, hold on. I'm going to go back up to the questions. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Are you guys guessing? You said Aquarius Sun, Sagittarius Moon, Pisces Rising. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's a compliment. I seem like a Capricorn. Thank you. Let's see. Talks fast. Mercury and Gemini. I get Mercury and Gemini a lot. Sun and Libra maybe. Yes. My sun is in Libra, so ding, ding, ding. And then you talk so fast. Air, Mercury. Yes. I seem like a Virgo. I get Virgo a lot also. Yeah, Gemini, Mercury. Yeah, I get Gemini, Mercury a lot. I get Gemini a lot overall, okay? I'll tell you guys. So my sun is in Libra. My moon is in Scorpio. My rising is in Libra. My sun is in the 12th house. My moon is in the 1st house. My 4th house is in Capricorn. So that's where you guys get the Capricorn energy, because the 4th house in Capricorn gives the undertone of having a Capricorn moon. And then what else? So I have a Scorpio stellium. I have a Libra stellium. And then my dominants are Scorpio, which is Pluto dominant, and then Capricorn, which is Saturn dominant, and then Cancer, which is Moon dominant. There you go. Yes, Moon in the 1st house. Moon in the 1st house is incredibly, incredibly psychic. It gives you the undertone of having a Cancer rising, okay? So that's the struggle, because it's like when you have Moon in the 1st house, it's like everything shows on your face, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's hard to hide how you feel. Like, let's say you're out somewhere, or if you don't like someone, like, you know, you might have to train yourself to not show everything on your face, like how you're feeling at all times, which is interesting too, to have like Moon in Scorpio, but then it's in the 1st house. So it's like out there to the world, you know? Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Personal trainer, yes. You said if there is an ortho activation during 1st Saturn return, does anything happen to Chiron too, like more going into the teacher side and leaving the healing part? Oh, that's interesting. I'd have to think about that. I said talk about Leo moon. Yes. So, okay, when you guys have anything at the 29th degree, you basically don't get to get out of that sign and that sign's karma until you master that sign, okay? So everything that I said about Leo with like rejection and wanting to be seen, it's like you don't basically get out of that karma until you master it, right? So that's kind of like how I learned about the 29th degree and the 0 degree as well, but specifically the 29th degree, okay? It's like you don't get out of the karma of that particular sign. So you have to look and see what is the karma of the sign. It could also be karma with the father as well. Let's see. How to handle Scorpio rising, secondary progression. You said embrace the dark side of life, but it's hard and sad. Yeah, it is. When you go through Scorpio secondary progressions, you go into like the depths. Okay, you go into the underworld. And you know what? I don't know. You know, the way that I see things is, you know, you always want to look at things in like a positive, or like put like a positive twist on it. It's like, at least when you go through the darkness, it's like it doesn't scare you anymore. There's that. There's also like, eventually you just like don't care, you know what I mean? Like you're not affected by it as much, right? So a lot of people fear these things, right? And I actually saw a video the other day. It was so funny. It was like the person like was joking about how like as soon as they sit down and like they have like a moment to themselves, they're like, nope, like they get up right away. and they like want to be constantly doing something and being busy and being in that vibe as well, which is like in a way survival mode or like avoiding the self or avoiding the shadows and like these types of things is also exhausting, right? So it's like the more you embrace the shadows and like the hard aspects of life and just like all these things, it's like life becomes easier. Do you know what I mean? But it's like you got to go through the underworld, right? Clear it all up, the subconscious, all these types of things to come out on the other side. It just is what it is. But it is challenging, like I will say that much. And it's not fun and it's intense. But you know, you can look at it as like there's a light at the end of that tunnel. And it's like once you've conquered it and you've kind of neutralized it within yourself, you're not affected by it as much anymore. Do you know what I mean? So that's what happens when you go into the Scorpio secondary progression. You're basically doing shadow work. But also don't get stuck in the shadow work either. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, I find that Scorpio energy sometimes like gets sucked into just brooding all the time, you know, or like, you know, now these days everyone's talking about healing and it's like, you know, you still have to enjoy life, you know what I mean? So like kind of explore and like get to the root of the problem, but like don't get stuck in that either, you know, where it's like you're constantly like sitting there or like waiting, oh my gosh, what's the next thing that's gonna happen? Because that's like the shadow of Scorpio as well, right? So it's like Scorpio is really clearing through a lot of darkness, like the paranoia aspect of things. Like, you know, sometimes they think everyone's out to get them, like really the shadow aspects, like possessive vibes. Sometimes it's codependency. So there's a lot to transmute, but there's a blessing on the other side, I will say at least, right? Because it's like, once you've transmuted, it's done, right? And then you kind of watch everybody else do it after you. You know what I mean? Let's see what else is going on in here. You said you're doing good, Nature's Moon. You said, can you give insights on Sagittarius IC with Uranus, Jupiter, 3rd house, and Moon, Neptune, 4th house? Oh my gosh, that's really interesting. Sagittarius IC, did you move around a lot? I'm curious to know. Or maybe like the father was like traveling for work or something like that. That's Sagittarius IC, where it's like there could have been movement, or you moved around with the family, or you traveled, or you moved to like different locations. And then later on, Sagittarius IC kind of develops their like stability in life through being almost like nomadic in a way. So there's that's something that can take place. And then you have Neptune in the 4th house is also struggle because like you might have not seen the home clearly, or maybe you felt like you weren't seen. Like there's that aspect of the Neptune in the 4th house as well. Or it's like, you know, you're like constantly dreaming like, oh my gosh, one day when my family's like this and when my home is like this, or like that's something that can take place. Sometimes Neptune in the 4th house can like have a family early, like have their own family early because they're kind of trying to rectify their own childhood. So there's that aspect of it as well. What else? You have Uranus, Jupiter in the 3rd house, and then you said Moon. Oh, and then you have Moon and Neptune. Okay, Moon and Neptune, be careful for addiction, okay? Because Mr. Matthew, who just passed away, he had Moon and Neptune conjunct, but he had it in the sign of Scorpio. I'm curious to know what sign you have Moon and Neptune in if you are still in the room, okay? So Moon and Neptune, be careful when it comes to addiction because there's things that you don't see clearly here, okay? And it's like you might have to have the emotional world like really resolved, or you might escape, right? And it's like addiction can be on a range, right? It doesn't have to be so extreme, but it can be something like codependencies, maybe codependency in your relationships. It could be anything from like overthinking, anything that gives you a sense of comfort, right? It could also be scrolling or like these types of things, okay? So something to keep in mind. And then Uranus and Jupiter in the 3rd house. Uranus in the 3rd house is a nice placement for learning astrology or anything that's like mathematical, sciencey, like a new language. So it's good for that. And then you can make money through it, okay? Because you've got Jupiter in there, and then written and spoken word. Although because you have Uranus in the 3rd house, you know, you might speak in a way that maybe the everyday person doesn't understand right now, okay? So you'll have to find a way to like water down the information, okay? But that energy could also become like very good in like a niche, you know, like those like technical papers that like professors write that like only like every other professor in their field understands, and like the everyday person looks at it and it's like, what does ibuprofen mean? Why couldn't you just write down Advil? Like, you know, these types of things. Let's see. Did not move around. Moon, Neptune. Oh, you have Moon and Neptune in Sagittarius. You said thank you. That could turn into maybe travel, escape. It could be this. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Cancer rising, I'll get to that. I'm just going back up. Let's see what else you guys thinking here. Virgo Venus in the 8th house seems contradictory to you like most of your placements. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Virgo Venus in the 8th house. Yeah, that's interesting because I'm curious to know if you have Virgo overall in the 8th house, because that's going to make you like super investigative. of like anything that's hidden and anything that's secretive. So you could be really good at occult stuff, right? So you could like kind of like really get down to like, you know, like really the roots of astrology, right? So like Virgo in the 8th would be very good at like learning maybe sidereal and learning, you know, the regular one, the Placidus one, the Western Placidus system. So it's things like this, true crime, you know, you'll get like down to it, right? It's like, wait, hold on, like there was this person in the background and their eyes were looking in that way, something that no other person would notice. That's a Virgo in the 8th house overall, okay? Now, you got Venus in there. It's going to be in your relationships, okay? So that's going to be a little bit of a struggle because it's like, you know, the first thing that's coming to mind is like, you know, when people talk about like the ick in relationships, like for you, it might come from someone's mannerisms, right? Or something that's like very particular about that person that maybe no other person will notice, right? Or it's like, you know how sometimes people say certain words differently? I mean, I can't think of it right now. But yeah, so it's like, it could be things like this, right? Because it's like you pick up on like a very like subtle thing or like a shadow trait. You know, that's because it's in the 8th house. So Virgo in the 8th is going to be good at picking up on shadows, right? But it's like, it's a struggle because it's like, it's in your Venus. So it's in your relationships and then it's in your friendships and then it's like all your interpersonal relationships. So it's like, when it comes to these things, you can kind of be maybe like, you know, very quick to cut people off, you know? Let's say it's your friends. Let's say your friend said, oh, we're going to meet at 5:30. And then you know, they show up at like 5:31. Okay, it's a little bit of an extreme example. But let's say it's this. You're like, oh my gosh, 5:31. You were supposed to be here at 5:30. Oh my gosh, they're not punctual. They, you know, don't care about my time. Like it can go into this shadow, right? So it could be things like this. It's a little bit of an extreme example, but I'm sure you catch my drift with what I mean by that, right? So that's the thing. Virgo in the 8th house is going to pick up on shadows, like shadow traits, like, you know, something that other people might not pick up on, and it's going to be in your relationships, you know? So it's like, it's going to be a struggle because it's like Virgo is kind of here to master, you know, the imperfection of the plane, right? And then you have it in your Venus. So it's like you're constantly looking for perfection in relationships and through relationships, right? And then you might also take on projects, or you might take on people who are like super dark and like really, really need healing. So, you know, try to not become like, what's that word? Is it like Florence Nightingale? You said Leo 8th house, actually. Oh, very interesting. I find Leo 8th house people, like what happens with them is like they tend to like fear being seen. They want to be seen, but they tend to fear being seen. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? How to handle Scorpio rising. Oh yes, we did that one. Neon the Phoenix. You said, how would you explain what's happening during a progressed Venus in the 12th house? Yes, that's karmic clearance through your relationships, okay, when you're in that progression. So you're clearing karma with these people. You might date a lot of people, or you might have a lot of, you know, friendships during that time, or just people in general, right? It could be this. And then also through Venus in the 12th house, it's like you yourself might discover unconscious things about yourself. Because keep in mind, okay, like anything that's happening in our lives is always showing us ourselves, right? So there's this, you know, so keep that in mind for everything, not just relationships. You're welcome. Hey, super kind, how are you doing? Yay! Oh my gosh, I'm glad that you were able to catch me on YouTube, B89B. Let's see, I'm just going in order, so I will get to everyone, but sometimes I bounce back and forth, but I do remember my spot, so I will get to everyone. You said, so Kennedy said, thank you for that information. If it helps, since you said you were getting up an image of her, if it helps, hold on. You said, if it helps, since you said you were getting up an image of her, if it helps, she's a Libra sun and a Leo moon. Okay, I will look that person up later just because I'm curious now. So I will look them up to see maybe what their rising sign will be. And if you're in my next live, then I will mention it there. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Please, your insight on my Aquarius sun, 8th house, Jupiter in Leo in the 2nd with your Cancer rising. Okay, so I have someone else in here that was a Cancer rising as well. So you have Aquarius sun in the 8th house. That's usually something hidden around the father. Maybe he had like an addiction that was hidden, or maybe there was something like gambling or something like this, okay? Or maybe it was just something that was different because of the Aquarius sun. So here's the thing with 8th house people that I've noticed. It's like sometimes they incarnate, this might be Scorpio too, but I feel like it's more so 8th house sometimes, like 8th house energy in a natal chart. This is just something that I've observed. I've observed that these people are kind of here to like bring to the surface something that's hidden within the family line, right? So in that situation, there's something with the father that's like hidden or not clear or like unseen. Also sun in the 8th house overall, like you yourself might not feel seen, okay, as a person. You yourself might have to work harder, right, to kind of, you know, put yourself out there, right? Because the sun wants to shine, 8th house is hidden, you know? So there could be this as well. And you have Jupiter and Leo. That's nice. Jupiter and Leo, you can make money through like politics or anything to do with like entrepreneurship, being seen. So anything to do with like acting or theater or just creativity overall, you could basically make money. And then you have it in the 2nd house, which is a wealth placement. So that's nice. You're basically going to be very much like, this is my goal. This is how I'm going to go about getting my goal. Okay. So that is Leo in the 2nd house. So Jupiter, Leo in the 2nd house. Cancer rising though. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say for Cancer rising. Cancer rising, I've noticed a lot of them end up in professions that are something that's very like nurturing. It obviously depends on the combination in the natal chart, because some of them can be really good managers as well, Cancer rising people, because they're really going to like care, right, about their employees. And it is a cardinal sign. So that's the thing. Cardinal signs are the initiators, okay, regardless of which cardinal sign it is. So you can be a really good manager if you have Cancer rising, for example, right? Because it's like, you know, you'll care about your employees. You want to make sure that this person gets their vacation and that person and all these types of things. But what I will say for Cancer rising people, okay, the struggle with them is like they might have an abandonment wound. All Cancer people have this though, but they might have an abandonment wound where it's like, oh, I created a family with my colleagues and now I don't want to leave this job. That could happen, okay? So just keep that in mind, right? Where it's like, you know, you have your family vibe, which is nice, but then also it can hold you back. So just something to keep in mind, or just like keep an eye out for, a catch. So there's that. And then also Cancer rising, like I mentioned earlier, Cancer rising can be very much like descriptive in terms of their faith. You're going to be intuitive. You're going to be psychic, clairsentient, maybe even. That's also Cancer rising. A lot of the time I've seen them in things like nursing, okay, or things like, you know, social work, or things like behavior analysts, or like speech therapists, like these types of roles. I've seen a lot of Cancer rising people in, but like I mentioned, they could also be really good managers as well. Oh, thank you, lucky boy. You're so awesome. That's so kind of you. How are you doing? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being a part of the channel. Astrocartography is cool. I mean, I felt it in my natal chart. Definitely stay away from your Saturn line. Everything's going to be harder for you on your Saturn line. So yeah, with astrocartography, you can kind of look at the lines. I don't know. The rest of the lines from me are kind of like in the ocean, which I don't know. Maybe there's like other land there, you know, that's not showing on the map. But regardless, it's like, you know, if you want to find love, go live on your Venus line. If you want to find Jupiter, you know, or if you want to make money, go live on your Jupiter line. Like, you can look at it this way. So there's that, you know, and it's interesting because you'll see sometimes what you can do is you can look at also, if you want to go deeper into it, I'm not an expert at astrocartography, but what you could do is you can kind of look at the synastry between you and that place, right? Because every place has a birth chart, right? Also, maybe the place you're living has a birth chart. Maybe the house that you're living in has a birth chart. I mean, it has a birth chart, but maybe like when you look at it, you'll see what's going on in terms of synastry. Is this a good place for me to live? Is this, you know, going to attract these other types of things? So that's a little bit more intense, you know, in terms of like astrology, right? But, you know, this is something you can do. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Oh my gosh, Lucas, you're awesome. I was wondering if it was you. You're so great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm happy that you were able to come to my YouTube live as well. How are you doing? You said, what are my thoughts on dreams? Having reoccurring dream of being abandoned or fighting with a partner. Do I have videos on dreams? Okay, here's the thing. Give me 1 second. Actually, I want to turn on the light, and I need to turn on the light as well, but I can't pause. So there's this light, but that's just like eerie vibes. Give me 1 second. I'm going to turn on the light in the room. All right. And let's turn this one on too. Okay. So dreams. Okay. It's really interesting because it's like, I don't know, different people have different interpretations when it comes to dreams. Okay. Because it's like, some people are going to say it's your subconscious. Sometimes I do think that it is this, okay? It's your subconscious like rearranging itself and kind of like, you know, thinking about like, today I ate a, you know, this type of sandwich and, you know, that comes up in your dream or whatever, right? There's that. But, you know, some people also saying this is really interesting to like see what were you feeling in that dream. So like for you, right? If it's like being abandoned, well, you know, maybe that's something that happened again in a past life, and it's kind of like in your energetic field that needs to be like cleared and transmuted. Because you know, it's really interesting. I actually have videos coming out about the chakras. Okay, that's going to come out after the Jupiter series. And basically, like, I talk about the collective wounds. And one of the biggest collective wounds is abandonment, right? Being abandoned. And it's really, really interesting because it's like, it's just interesting to me because recently I was hearing someone saying, and he was saying like, this is from his own perspective, right? He was just like saying that like, he thinks that like a lot of people were abandoned in like their past lives and like these types of things. And I was like, that's interesting because I always like felt it as like the collective wound as abandonment, right? So it's just like a wound in the overall collective. So it's really, really interesting. So that could be one of the reasons you're dreaming with this, about this. But yeah, so I don't know, it's hard to say because I also feel like there's another aspect of dreams where it's like, you're going off into the astral and you're either working in the astral. Have you guys heard about Mall World? You guys should check it out, okay? There's a whole like Reddit thread on it, Mall World, because like a lot of people are visiting this world and, you know, like there's this whole community where it's like they're all visiting the same world. So it's like, what are they doing, right? Sometimes I personally feel like we're building something in our dreams. Other people have said that we go off to like where we're actually from in our dreams. So it's really, really interesting. It is really interesting because it's something that we do for like 8 hours, right? If you're sleeping 8 hours, some people sleep 6, let's say. But regardless, it's like there's something still here that there's more, right? So I think it just depends on what kind of dream it is. What are you doing? What's happening? What's the vibe, right? Because it's like, I've heard even people, you know, having intense dreams. Like some people dream about like, you know, like dinosaurs and monsters and these types of things. So it's like, why are they dreaming about these types of things, you know? So it's hard to say, but no, to answer your question, I don't have any videos on dreams. Yeah, dreams are the best. You said, thank you for helping me get a live vibe. Yay, I'm so glad. You said Halloween energy has been very SHIT. You got gastric flu and a lot of people are getting sick, a lot of negative energy. Yeah, there's a lot of negative energy in the air. Like a lot of people's energy is being siphoned during this time because usually during this time is when they do a lot of our RITUALS. I'm going to have to spell it out. So you guys are going to have to read between the lines. So you have to like really figure out how to disconnect and not have your energy siphoned. And that's another thing that I've been thinking about too. This is a theory. So you guys can let me know what you think and maybe people watching the replay. Sometimes I think to myself and I'm like, is our energy being siphoned in our dreams? Is that something that's potentially also happening when we dream, right? So there's all of these possibilities of like, what's going on, right? Why can't people remember? Some people can, but like some people can't. So it's like, what's going on here, right? Like you're going into the astral realm for sure, but what are you doing in the astral realm, you know? And then sometimes I think of the movie Inception. And then if we're gonna really go down that lane, like the movie Inception, we're gonna kind of get to the point where we talk about, we're like, this is a dream, right? So it's like, I don't know, there's just so much to say, I guess. Relate to dream coming true, scared you all the time. Yeah, that happened to me when I was a kid. So that was kind of how I became aware that I was psychic because I would have dreams that would come true. And like, thankfully, my grandma would ask me all the time, like, what did I dream? And then I would tell her, and then she'd be like, oh my gosh, you dreamt this thing, and you dreamt that thing, and that came true, and that came true. So that's kind of how I figured out that I had like the, I guess it's called precognitive dreams. So there's that aspect of dreams too, where it's like, you're predicting something. So you know what I mean? I think it's all these things, but it's a matter of like being able to tap into it. So it's like, it's really interesting because if we think about it, we only use 10% of our brains, right? Only 10%, or like only 10% has been discovered or whatever it is. So it's like, if we could use the full capacity, like what more could we do, you know? Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Uranus opposition conjunct Chiron in the 5th house. Oh, that's interesting. Uranus opposition, can you tell me what do you have your Uranus in and the house as well? You said true, Scorpio, Sun, Pluto, and Mercury. I'm sure you were saying true when I was going on my Scorpio tangent. A lot of people have retracted their messages. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Advice for Moon and Venus conjunct in Sag. Moon and Venus conjunct in Sag. That's really interesting. So here's the thing, Sagittarius craves freedom, okay? So a lot of the time you'll hear Sagittarius is like the bachelor or like the bachelorette of the zodiac. But the thing is like they're craving freedom, okay? That's like the main name of the game for Sagittarius energy. So if you can find a partner who aligns with you and gives you emotional freedom when it's in the moon, right? Then, you know, you're going to be able to maybe be in a relationship with them. If it's a person that's trying to hold you down and suffocate you, and it's like, well, every week we have to do this and we have to do it at this time and whatever, right? And then they get abandoned and their abandonment wound gets triggered. That's not gonna work for like Moon and Sag, especially conjuncting your Venus and Sag, right? So when it comes to relationships, because it's in your Venus, friendships, all these types of things, you need friendships, right, that are going to give you that freedom, okay? Freedom to come and go, right? That's kind of like the name of the game with the Sagittarius energy. So It's really what that is. And then Sagittarius also needs to be able to like kind of venture off sometimes and do things on their own. Yes, you might also maybe attract a partner who is gonna maybe travel with you because Sagittarius likes to travel, but at the same time, it's like they're still gonna need that time apart, right? So even if you are traveling, Sagittarius needs to go off and be like, okay, for the day, I'm gonna go on my exploration, you do your exploration, like to keep things exciting, right? So that's the thing. And otherwise, like this is why they're considered like, you know, the bachelors or the bachelorettes of the zodiac, right? Because it's like they don't want to be tied down, right? And that's for everything. When you have it in the moon, it's going to be in your jobs. Okay, so you need a job that allows you to give, you know, that allows you emotional freedom, right? So keep that in mind. Hey, Ellie, how are you? What's up? Let's go back up. Oh my gosh, hey, sending you hugging vibes as well. Let's see. You're welcome. Sun in the 8th house is resonating. I'm glad that it resonated. Yeah, sun in the 8th house, like always, sun in the 8th house, usually father, moon in the 8th house, mother, okay? So it's like 8th house is always here to kind of bring something to the surface that's been hidden. That's the way that that's just how I psychically see it, right? So it's like maybe it's a family secret. Maybe it is a pattern within the family line. Maybe it is, you know, something that's hidden though, right? Like something that could have been covert and you're the one that kind of brought it to the surface. These types of things. You're welcome. Cancer rising in the hotel and hospitality. There you go, hotel and hospitality. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Like Cancer rising customer service, maybe anything where they're kind of helping people or nurturing people, these types of things. You will find Cancer risings in there. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said Chiron, Taurus, 5th house, opposite Jupiter, Scorpio, 11th house right now. Uranus is transiting this placement. Please and thank you for sharing your gifts with us. Thank you. The lines in the ocean can still be felt. Moving to good lines does not make it mean you'll have a good experience. And you have to look at the planets. Yes, absolutely, I agree with you. Vertex in the 8th house in Virgo. Okay, this is how you guys can look at Vertex. The house, okay, is going to tell you the person or group of people you are experiencing this fated event through, okay? The Vertex is the fated event. So the house is going to be the person or the group of people. So a house is going to be an A-house type of person or group of people. Astrologer, psychologist, sex therapist, financial advisor, banker, okay? It could be like a personal trainer, right? Helping you transform the body, okay? It could be anything like this, anything in the occult, psychology, all these things, okay? That's a house. And then you have it in Virgo, the house in, or sorry, the sign in here is gonna tell you maybe what the vibe of that fated event might be, okay? So Virgo could be some sort of event where it's like healing and helping people and being of service. So for example, maybe you go to like a personal training session, you have a personal trainer who like helps you get to like your goals. And then through that, you're now inspired to go help other people and heal people. And that's somehow like connected to your overall life purpose. That's how I see Vertex. I see Vertex as like some form of fated event that took place or has taken place or takes place. And it puts us on our path, okay? So that's how I see it. You said you can't wait for Saturn and Pisces. Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius. Saturn is in Pisces. Are you looking maybe at the sidereal system? Your Aquarius sun in the 12th house, Capricorn moon in the 10th, and Pisces rising in the 1st. You feel karma hidden all the time. Yeah, Pisces rising in the 1st. Also, like the struggle with Pisces rising is like you never really see yourself. You know what I mean? So it's like, it could be a few things, right? Maybe you're like really good looking, but you don't see that, right? Maybe everybody else does, but you don't. That's kind of Pisces rising. Or maybe you're like really talented. Maybe you have this like talent, but you don't see it. That's kind of Pisces rising. But other people do, okay? And then you're gonna have a very healing aura, so people are always gonna wanna be around you. Vertex in the 8th house, Leo moon, and also in the 8th, Virgo moon, square, sun in the 12th, conjunct Venus, Mercury, Neptune, ascendant, and Capricorn. I would have to look at that. You said you could relate to dreams coming true. You said, and y'all practice vivid dreams. It's cool because you can manipulate your dreams. It might help you work on your 12th house placements, but it's scary. That's kind of like lucid dreaming. Good night, Furzy. Have a nice evening. Moon in Cancer in the 6th house, Lilith and Gemini in the 5th house. So Moon in Cancer in the 6th house, so that's super intuitive, but you struggle with that abandonment wound, okay? So Moon in Cancer tends to be the most abandoned sign. So the struggle with them is like, you know, whether it's in this lifetime or whether it was like in a past life, right? There's an abandonment wound there that kind of needs to be basically rectified, okay? So maybe you carry like orphan past lives within you. It's gonna kind of relate to what we were talking about earlier with like the collective wound of abandonment. It's just like Cancerian people feel it more. And a lot of the time I've noticed with Cancerian people, what tends to happen is like the abandonment wound is usually emotional abandonment. So maybe, you know, when you were growing up, someone didn't hold space for your emotions and now you struggle with that, for example, right? So that's why you'll see like sometimes women in Cancers can struggle with something like alcoholism, for example. I've seen that manifest where it's like, again, there was maybe not an outlet for the emotions, or maybe they didn't get the love that they were seeking. I kind of find everything is kind of rooted in love at the end of the day, like people seeking it or not getting it, and then maybe suppressing it and these types of things, right? So it could be this, okay? So Moon in Cancer kind of struggles with this abandonment, right? But it's abandonment like emotional abandonment or emotional neglect. And that could be something that holds you back, right? Maybe it holds you back from fully expressing yourself or fully expressing your emotions because it is in the moon, right? And then it's like, you know, for you to get to the point of like anything, right? Let's say you want to create like art, for example, maybe you'll be interested in art of some sort. It's like you have to get in tune with that emotional aspect of yourself, right? So keep this in mind. 6th house is health, healing, and being of service. But having the moon in there, again, because it's your emotional world, maybe you kind of feel like you always have to fix yourself, right? Or you're trying to fix your emotional world all the time. Like that's the struggle with that 6th house. It's constantly like trying to fix something, right? And it kind of, you know, it kind of relates to like not feeling enough. And then it's kind of like, well, where does that come from? You know what I mean? So you kind of have to go back. And then you have Lilith in Gemini. So Lilith in Gemini, that's in the 5th house. You kind of have to look at the dark side of Gemini, okay, to see what you have to integrate within yourself. So the dark side of Gemini could be sometimes they transport gossip, I've noticed, okay, without realizing. With them, it's like just because they talk, they might kind of go to this person and say what that person said. And then this whole thing's going on and Gemini's like, oh my gosh, like all these people are arguing. But it's like they transported the gossip. So that could be something that takes place. Lilith and Gemini can sometimes maybe come off like flaky, these types of things, okay? So just something to integrate within yourself. I like Placidus more. It resonates with my natal chart more. You're welcome. Insights on Scorpio moon, 5th house, conjunct Mercury, Cancer rising. Your son is 3 years old, very emotional, does not sleep, wakes up crying a lot. I'm curious to know if he's picking up on like energies that are around him, like, because usually Scorpio moon is like mediumship vibes. So I'm curious to know if that's like what's maybe disrupting him. You know, it's interesting. Some cultures have like the belief to like not have your child, you know, when you first birth your child, to like not have them around anybody for like the first 40 days. And, you know, I thought about that once and I was like, okay, where does this come from? And then I was thinking and I was like, it makes sense because it's like, it probably has something to do with the metaphysical aspect of it, where it's like, you know, you want to kind of protect the aura of the child, I guess, until maybe they create an auric field. I don't know why it's 40 days. I'm sure there's a reason for it to be 40. But yeah, so it's like, you know, children are very sensitive, right? So it's like they're sensitive to energy and they're probably picking up on things that most other people don't pick up on. So if he's like waking up and crying, that's the first thing that I thought of because he's a Scorpio moon. Maybe he's picking up on energies. So I don't know if you cleanse the space or if you have a way of cleansing the space or just like, you know, doing certain things to bring in maybe like more energetic protection. It could be this. You said right on about constantly healing for moon and Cancer. It's so high maintenance. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people get stuck in, you know, and especially like if you have prominent Virgo energy in your chart or 6th house energy or just like any, maybe even Scorpio energy as well. Like, you know, you do have to go through a certain level of healing to get to a certain point, but then it's like, you know, you stabilize and then you got to kind of go out there into the world again, you know, and then it's like you have your experiences and you kind of have to recover from those. And, you know, so it's like, it's a constant thing, right? So it's like constantly like focusing and hyperfixating on it. It's kind of like, it kind of gives like the vibe, like, you know, that again, it comes back to like not being good enough, but it's like, where does that come from, right? Because it's like, I don't know, I'm not religious, but if we look at it like in the eyes of like the creator, everyone is born divine, right? So it's like, there's that aspect of it as well. I think you want to catch, you know, maybe what the triggers are and like the wounding is, because some of those things might not even be yours. Some of those things might even have been passed down, or they might even be through like the generational line. So you kind of want to catch those things, right? But I feel like a lot of people internalize a lot of things. And I feel like a lot of people, like, especially like the younger generations, like Pluto and Scorpio, Pluto and Sag, who are more sensitive to energy, internalize these things even more. But it's like, you know, kind of detaching from it and being like, hold on, like, this is who I am as a person, right? So there's that aspect of it as well. You said you've been wondering that too. You've been asking him about his dreams lately. Thank you. You will take my advice on cleansing. Okay, I'm glad that that was confirmed. Let me just go back up to see what else you said he has in there. Scorpio moon in the 5th house conjunct his Mercury. Oh, he has a Mercury in Scorpio too. And then he's a Cancer rising. Yeah, so he's probably super, super psychic. Yes, good call on asking him about his dreams. And also just like overall, you know, overall the astral just has been wild in general. So maybe he's dreaming things or picking up on things. You know, that's another thing that I've noticed too in like religious scriptures. You know, some of the religions, like if we look at religions, like the core of it, it's spiritual, right? Even though like, you know, there's nuances here and there and different people say different things. But one theme, right, when you study all these things is like praying before you go to bed. And it makes sense because it's kind of like you're trying to pray, you're trying to cleanse the space, whatever term you want to use, right? Protect, it's like energetic protection for when you go into the astral in the nighttime, right? So there's that aspect of it as well. So there could be something happening, because what I will say though is like the astral is wild, right? Like right now, I feel like we're at the height of like the spiritual WAR. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like what's actually happening in dream time? What are we actually doing? Do you know what I mean? So let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said you're so right. Your Venus in Pisces, 1st house, you feel delusions. Yeah, I always get confused with Venus and Pisces being exalted, because I'm just like, is this really the best placement or one of the best placements for Venus? Because it's like, I can see, I always say this, like I can see it being good when it comes to like art and creating art and being creative and like making money through those things and like prospering on the earth plane in that way. Yes, but when it comes to your relationships, you're going to romanticize relationships a lot. You're going to romanticize your partners a lot. You'll see people's potential, right? Because when you're a psychic person or a 12th house person, Pisces, Neptunian, any of these things, you see people's potential, right? You tap into that person, but then when they're not playing that out in the physical, right? It's like there's this discrepancy energetically. So sometimes you hook into that and you hold on to that, right? So that's a struggle. So Venus in Pisces is like always idealizing and dreaming, and it's like falling in love with the potential and like all these types of things. So yeah, I find it interesting that it's exalted. Yes, so healing, excellent for manifesting abundance. Absolutely. It is really, really important, because whatever term you want to use, you know, in religion, it's called prayer, protection, like whatever term you want to use, like, I don't know, it's basically to protect your field, right? And kind of close it up, like close up the aura. Mimi, how are you? I'm just getting to your question now. You said any insight into Jupiter and Gemini in the 8th house, Venus in Cancer in the 9th house, Scorpio rising, Virgo sun, and Capricorn moon. Okay, hold on. So Jupiter and Gemini in the 8th house, and then you have Venus in Cancer in the 9th house. I find for Venus and Cancerian people, for them, like if relationships aren't going in the way that you want them to go, there's always interference from like the mother, okay? If it's not the mother directly, it's just like energetic interference, right? So maybe it's like emotional neglect or abandonment, or you kind of like, again, being maybe a more sensitive person and that not being accepted and received. So that's something that happens for Venus and Cancer people is what I notice. You have Scorpio rising, Virgo sun, and Capricorn moon. Well, the Virgo sun and Capricorn moon is very nice and grounding in there. Jupiter, Gemini, you can make money through the written or spoken word, and then you have it in the 8th house. You'll see some billionaires have Jupiter in the 8th house, okay? So I will slip that in there. But the energy is there for money, but it's usually other people's money. So that's something that I've been thinking about for Scorpionic energy, slash like a house types of energy people. For them, you know, when it comes to your projects and everything that you want to do, the best thing for you, like the best thing to do, obviously this isn't financial advice, but the best like way to go about your projects is to use other people's money, okay? So what I mean by this is like look for investors, right? When you have a project, that's all Scorpio 8th house, okay? So the energy is probably going to work better in your favor when it's somebody else's money, okay? Or it's an inheritance, or, you know, you made it off of some form of investment, like whatever it is, right? So that's something that I've noticed for like 8th house slash Scorpionic people. And then you have Scorpio rising, so that might resonate in there. You said you're doing well. You said very, I don't know what you're saying very too, but I'm glad that it might have resonated. You said you feel like spirituality and dreams are crazy right now because of what's happening with Neptune and late Pisces. You wonder what will happen when Neptune goes into Aquarius from water to fire. Oh, interesting. When is it going into Aries? You said you have a lot of planets in their natural house instead of zodiac. This feels very significant for you. Is there a name for that? I'm not actually sure. You said you work in grants. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Is that other people's money? Let me just go. Yes, I do natal chart readings. Yes, I didn't say it at the beginning of this video. So if you guys made it this far, I do natal chart readings, okay? So it's on my website. It is going to be under the readings, and it is going to be an email. So you can either do regular natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, okay? The regular natal chart reading is a 45-minute reading. I always go over though, because as you can tell, I talk a lot. So 45 minutes though, that one's 152 USD. It's a video I send you guys, so you guys can watch it as many times as you'd like. Then I have progress natal charts. It is 1 hour long, and that also goes over, but overall the minimum is 1 hour. And then in that one, so that one I think I have it as 170 right now. It's just because I go over the original natal chart and then I go over the progress natal chart. So I talk about both natal charts in that video. So yeah, same thing. So it's also a video, and I send you the link, and you guys can watch it as many times as you'd like. So if you guys want your own reading, go on my website, click on it. A window's gonna pop up to send me an email, and then you guys can send me an email. You said other people's money, you tend to be trusted with finances. Yeah, that's that A house energy. You'll find yourself maybe working in those types of jobs, right? Financial advisor, or like managing a portfolio, or like these types of things. But yeah, it's always other people's money. So A house is other people's money, okay? Second house is your own money. So A house people are always going to find themselves somehow leveraging another person's assets. It's just part of the karma, right? In the house. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Lucy says Saturn and Aquarius, 6th house, all, you said Saturn and Aquarius, 6th house, and Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Leo in the 12th house, all squaring your midheaven in Taurus. Oh, that's really interesting. You have Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Leo in the 12th house. What I'm going to say is when you guys have 12th house placements, one thing you guys also want to do is you guys want to see the shadows that might be going on. You're welcome, Mimi. You might want to see what shadows you might have going on with that particular sign that could potentially be holding you back, because it is squaring your midheaven. So it's like, for example, maybe the shadow here is you really want to be seen, but then, you know, Leo in the 12th house is hidden, right? Or, you know, you might be more so like underground, or like not wanting to show yourself, or like whatever it is, right? And then it is squaring your midheaven. So it's like the midheaven is the career, it's your public image. So maybe you have some sort of career, public image you want to pursue that's going to bring you some form of recognition, right? But you'll have to push through that 12th house hidden, right? And energy. Sometimes 12th house is very sacrificial also energetically. So like what might happen with 12th house people is like, there'll be the types of people that are like, no, you know, it's fine. You can take the spotlight, or you can get the recognition. Like, oh, I'm humble, or like they are humble, like you're naturally humble, but it's like sometimes you might fall into that position where you're like, oh, I'm humble, like it's okay, like they deserve it. So it's like Leo's dying for that recognition, right? So it's like kind of pushing through the aspect, you know? Hey, how are you doing? Neptune is in Aries from 2025 to 2039. Oh, that's going to be really, really interesting. That is going to be really, really interesting. That makes sense now. So if we're like ending off with Neptune and Pisces, it's like a lot of this like watery, like, you know, illusion, not seeing things clearly. That's going to be really, really interesting when it does go into Aries. Really, really interesting. Welcome to the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'm just going back up to see if I have missed anybody's questions. That's another thing. Yeah, with the 12th house, there's going to be a lot of karma. That's the struggle with the 12th house, you all. You know, it's karma. But you know what? I feel like it stabilizes at some point, you know? Until you get to that point where you're aware, right? Like, again, the blind spots, right? Because the 12th house is things that are unseen. So when you figure out all of the areas where you might be behaving in a shadow, you know, behavior, or you might have these shadow traits or whatever they are, internalize this thing, internalize that thing, merge with this person's energy, merge with that person's energy. When you kind of get all that down, it stabilizes. I will say that much. Like, it's not always like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy and I'm clearing so much karma. I feel like we're kind of stuck energetically in like the clearing karma phase until you gain the awareness. That's how it seems to me, at least, right? And then you're aware of it and you'll catch it, right? And you're like, oh, there's, you know, that pattern that I might have fallen into, but I'm not going to engage in it this time. So that's kind of how I see it. You said you were hoping that I could help you interpret having both Sun and Pluto in the 12th house. Oh, that's intense. Then you have Sun, Scorpio, Pluto, and Sagittarius. Sorry, you said in the 12th house. Sun and Pluto in the 12th house. The first thing that came through, I don't know why I picked up on like an explosive father or something of that sort. That's karma overall with the father and the masculine, okay? It took me right into like a warrior, you know, when I read that. So there could be this, and it could be hidden because it's the 12th house, so it could be covert. And then in turn, now a lot of your dynamics, because the sun can deal with men, okay, or just people who are in their masculine energy. A lot of these dynamics could be karmic, okay? There could be an energy of this with Sun and Pluto in the 12th house, or a lot of ego battles as well, maybe with men or people who are in masculine energy. And then you have it in the 12th house, so it could maybe be more so hidden, okay? Something that you don't see, right? Because that's what the 12th house does. It kind of blurs that area for you. You said, wow, true, your father was explosive. Yeah, that's right where it took me. Like right away, I saw the explosion, right, of the energy. So yeah, there's that. And then you said Sun, Scorpio, Pluto's in Sagittarius. That's kind of nice. So you don't have Pluto and Scorpio, you know, Pluto and Sag. So you don't have to, you know, deal with the Pluto and Scorpio karma. So you have a little bit of a break from that. But Sun Scorpio fathers, I've noticed Sun Scorpio fathers, you know, tend to be emotionally unavailable. What I've noticed, sometimes Sun Scorpio people, it depends on the chart, but I've seen these people like, because, you know, Scorpio used to be ruled by Mars, right? So sometimes you'll see these people in like martial arts, right? Something that's like warrior-esque, you know, or boxing. Or, you know, sometimes it's solo though, because Scorpio does have an ego at the end of the day, so they're probably going to want the glory for themselves. But yeah, it's something of this sort, you know, where it could be something like warrior-esque, like boxing is like the main thing, you know? But something martial artsy, you know, or you're fighting, or like karate, or like these types of things. So it could be this, right? But also, you know, the father may have struggled maybe with like addiction or like something of this sort, okay? Where it's like, but it's hidden. That's the thing with Sun Scorpios I've noticed. But with them overall, Sun Scorpios, like there's always something going on with the father, okay? You said always wants to push you back. You said always want to push back on authority when it pushes you down. Yeah, that's that Sun and Pluto. I'm curious to know what's going on with your Saturn. Can you tell me what do you have your Saturn in? You struggle with others gossiping about you with Lilith. You said you struggle with others gossiping about you with Lilith in Gemini in the 5th house. So you're working. Okay, that's another thing. I'm glad you pointed that out. So what can happen sometimes when you have an energy in your natal chart is you can be that energy, okay? Or I've noticed that sometimes people can pick up on that energy within you on this unconsciously, and then they can act out that energy as well. So for example, with Venus and Scorpio, I'll just use Venus and Scorpio as an example. You can be obsessive, but sometimes because it's in your field, other people can pick up on this. This is all happening unconscious and like energetically. They pick up on that obsessive energy, and then they can be obsessive towards you. So it's interesting you said the gossiping thing, because I remember saying to you earlier that Lilith and Gemini can struggle with gossiping. They can struggle with it, but people can pick up on it within you as well. And okay, so interesting, Shada. Sorry, I just went down to the next message. But yeah, people can pick up on it within you as well, and then kind of play out the energy as well. That's something that I've noticed. Taurus, Saturn. Okay, I was wondering what was going on. So that's in opposition. So you've got Taurus, Saturn opposing your Sun. Yeah, that's that push back to authority. I knew there was something going on with the Saturn in there. Yeah, because that's just what it feels like. It's like this ego, right? Because fixed energy is also ego energy, okay? Keep that in mind, you guys. All fixed signs struggle with the ego in one way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like, you know, you have Taurus, Saturn, maybe the father was kind of like restrictive in one way, shape, or form. And then it then translates into authority overall. And then on top of that, you have Sun and then Pluto, you know, Sun and Pluto together. That's kind of like that beef. I don't know any other term to use. Okay, Nature's Moon, you said, what is Pluto, Scorpio karma? You have Pluto and Scorpio in the 7th house. Yeah, I have a video on all of the generational planets. So Pluto is a generational planet, okay? So I have a video on the generational planets. I mean, I filmed it so long ago that I'm sure I have a lot more information now compared to before on the generational planets. But basically, Pluto and Scorpio's karma, okay, so you incarnate with the generation, right? So you're clearing the karma through the generation, okay? So all of the Pluto placements are generational. Regardless of Google, you'll type into Google, there's some of the cusp people, right? But when you have it in your astrology and your astrological energy, that's the generation you've astrologically incarnated into, clearing karma with, okay? Also, you know, you clear it with them, you clear it then within yourself, and then you clear it for the line, and then you also in turn are clearing it for the collective when you're clearing this energy, okay? So Pluto and Scorpio, a lot of them, I find them to be kind of like the cleanup generation, okay? Them, and then a little bit of Pluto and Sag, although for them it's a little bit different because Pluto and Scorpio is intense. It's a lot of shadows, a lot of shadow work. It's a lot of dark things, darkness, things that are hidden within the lines, okay? The only way that I can describe it is like, Sometimes I see the root chakra. You know, the root chakra is located in your it's located in your bowels, okay? It's kind of like at the base of the spine, but it's also the bowels, right? So sometimes I see it as like, you know, in the intestines. Sometimes there's like, I don't know if this is a thing. This is just how I psychically see it. I'm sure this is probably maybe a thing. I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, okay? I'm just putting that out there. That's my disclaimer right there. So this is just how I psychically see it. It's like sometimes in the intestines, right? Even though you go to the bathroom, along the line, right? There's still like residue, right? Of like whatever things that need to be cleared, right? This is like the, I guess, metaphor. You can say that it's a metaphor, right? So that's just kind of how I see it. So it's like the root chakra, right? And then the unconscious and then the subconscious is that residue energy, right? It's like you've cleared, but there's like still residue there that still needs to be cleared out, okay? So that's Pluto and Scorpio. That's how I see them. They're clearing out the residue, okay? That's in there and that like hasn't been cleared. I hope that analogy is making sense. So that's what they're doing, okay? And then if we look at it a little deeper, what is it? Okay, so Scorpio is other people's money. It's going to be anything to do with like money overall, how we look at money as a collective. That's a big one for them, especially the ones who have like Neptune, Capricorn, the ones who also have like Uranus and Capricorn as well. So there's a lot of karma around money. And then you'll see also how certain events are orchestrated, right? To kind of fall in line with that, right? 2008 crash and whatever, XYZ, okay? I'm sure you guys catch my drift. So it's interesting because like Scorpio also deals with the fears and it deals with the paranoias. And then you also have to see what was taking place when this generation incarnated, okay? So that's another way to see what's going on with the generation, okay? So when Pluto and Scorpio incarnated, okay, a lot of them, I have to see now, when was the start date? I think it's around 1984, it started switching, okay? So around that time, what happened in the world that was taking place? The AIDS pandemic, okay? So it's like you have to look to see what was going on in the energetic field that might be manifesting now within your energetic field because you incarnated into that time, right? So for example, a lot of people who are incarnating into Pluto and Capricorn right now might have like fears around money, right? So Pluto and Scorpio, there could be fears around sexuality, okay? Or just like, you know, there's a huge focus maybe on sexuality, right? In one way, shape, or form. That's Pluto and Scorpio, okay? And then you'll see the hookup culture energy that came through in that generation and all these things. Because that's Pluto and Scorpio. They're healing through fear of intimacy. They're also healing the attachment styles, attachment problems. The mother wound is a big one in this generation as well. That's a huge one. Codependency is a huge one. Addictive tendencies, okay, so that's a thing in this generation overall, okay, and a lot of the time that's connected to the lack of love from what I've noticed. So yeah, that's just to name a few. I have a whole video if you guys want to, you know, learn even more, but it was recorded a long time ago. If I were to re-record it, I'm sure I'd have more information that I'm saying to you guys now from what I've observed. But yeah, so that's the overall generation, okay? So that's something important to see, okay? When you guys are looking at healing generational things, all these types of things, you have to see what is going on in the generation, what is the overall karma, and then what was the vibe when you incarnated, okay? And what was going on with the overall vibe. Because some people also, you know, have Neptune and Sagittarius also that are like at the very beginning of Pluto and Scorpio, and some of them might be the Pluto and Libra generation who also have Neptune and Scorpio. So you'd have to see what was going on. You said definitely resonating with all Pluto and Scorpio. Yeah, no, that's Pluto and Scorpio. I'm so glad that resonates. You're welcome. I'm glad that it resonated. Yeah, Pluto and Sag fears freedom. Yeah, that's a big one for Pluto and Sag. There could be, because Pluto is like, it's the unconscious, right? It's the underworld. So it's things that are hidden. Yes, it's also fears, right? Like certain things that like, because Pluto can become paranoid, right? And then also it's about power and it's about control. So Pluto and Sag, right? If we were to look at Pluto and Sag as a generation, energetically and vibrationally, I find them a little bit lighter than Pluto and Scorpio. So you'll see, right? Pluto and Scorpio, another thing that they struggle with is like money and beliefs around money. Like that's a huge one for that generation as well. You'll see this on and off. And you have Pluto and Sag come through with this different placement, and they kind of don't have resistance, right? When it comes to money, okay? Or like their belief systems around money. That's why a lot of them are like young, like 19, 20, and they're making money off of crypto, or they're making money off of the internet, or whatever it is, okay? Because they don't have that same energetic, you know, field, structure, belief systems that the previous generation had, okay? But then yes, freedom is one in here. So they might have fears around their freedom, you know, being taken or something of this sort. So it's like, you'll notice a lot of Pluto and Saggies are going to be entrepreneurs, for example, from a young age, okay? From a young age. So that's something important to keep in mind. Vibrationally, like, you know, you'll see vibrationally, like Pluto and Scorpio, I find that they're kind of half-half, right? It kind of depends who their parents were. So that's another thing to look at, okay? So now we're going deep. Okay, so then you want to see, depending on which generation, what is the Pluto placement of your parents, okay? Because that's also part of the karma that you're clearing because you learned it from them. So in Pluto and Scorpio, some of them might have Gen X parents, okay, at the very like beginning of Gen X, end of boomers too. So that could be Pluto in Libra, okay? Thank you so much for the super chat. Then you have the Pluto in Virgo, which is boomers 2, and then you have Pluto in Leo, which is boomers 1, if you have older parents, right? So you kind of want to see what's going on. And for people who are watching the replay, maybe some people have Pluto in Cancer parents. So it's like Pluto in Cancer's shadow, right? If you have parents from that generation. Could have been emotional manipulation or like the victim consciousness and the feminine energy programming that you might have to break through, okay? That shadow feminine energy, doesn't matter what gender you were born into, it's just the vibe, okay? Then Pluto in Leo is narcissism, okay? So that's the big one in that generation, okay? And you have Pluto in Virgo, okay? This generation, you know, might have struggled with perfectionism. And then again, you have to look at their parents, right? Maybe they have Pluto in Leo parents, you know? So it's like if they have Pluto in Leo parents, they're kind of, you know, breaking through that narcissism. So it's kind of gets trickled down, right? And now we're at Pluto, you know, we're talking about right now Pluto and Scorpio, Pluto and Sag. I feel like these people are clearing out a lot of karma because we're kind of like at the end of an energetic era. If you look at it, right? I said this once way back. When we look at the letters of the alphabet, we have Gen Y, which is millennials. Okay, that's Pluto in Scorpio. We have Gen Z, okay, which is Pluto in Sag. And then we have Pluto in Capricorn, which is Gen Alpha. So I'm not saying this is a thing. This is just an observation, right? So when we look at it, it's like the end of the alphabet, the end of that cycle, right? So now we have Pluto in Capricorn, which is Gen Alpha. They're going to kind of be building the new systems, and you'll see, right? Like a lot of the younger generations, I feel like energetically in their like DNA or their code or whatever term you want to use, they're already equipped for what's to come futuristically, right? So you'll see this already, right? Already with some Pluto and Scorpio people, they already knew how to automatically use computers and phones, these types of things. Not to even mention, you know, Pluto and Sag, like all of the wonders they can do on the computers, right? So it's interesting to see, right? Because it's like, how do people know this? You know, like even when I would get tech when I was younger, it's like you just know what to press for certain things to work, but you might have to explain it to the older people because they don't have that in their energetic DNA. I hope that makes sense, you know? So when you're healing the generational stuff, right, you have to look at all these things, right? Who are the parents? What generation were they born into? Because same thing with like, you know, Gen Z, which is Pluto in Sag, right? Some of them may have had, let's say, Pluto in Libra parents, you know? So already the energy's lighter here, you know, in terms of what they're clearing. So Pluto and Scorpio has a lot to clear. Honestly, it's a lot. And you'll notice, you know, they might not have kids, or there could be just like, you know, not wanting to have children or something of that sort in that generation. Because in a way they're clearing, right, for their own inner child. So there's that aspect of it as well. And then a lot of them are old souls. That's something that I've noticed. A lot of them are old souls. And with the Pluto and Sag people, I find that generation to be very pure, like not pure. I hate when we use the term pure and it's just like tainted the term. I just mean that they're very clear energetically, like they're very sensitive, you know, and they're kind of adjusted to the new frequencies that we're moving into. So that's why a lot of them struggle, because it's like we're still breaking down the old. I hope all of that makes sense. Hey, what's up? We were talking about the Pluto placements. Pluto in Libra, you know, it's interesting, Gen X. I was just talking about this with someone the other day. Gen X somehow kind of gets lost in the shadows. I don't know why, you know, because it's kind of like the boomers were intense, boomers 1, boomers 2. You kind of have the Gen X, Pluto, Libra people sandwiched. Their karma, if we look at it like in terms of astrologically, their karma are relationships. I have a video on this as well. So I have the video for Virgo, Pluto, Libra. I have it for Pluto, Scorpio, and Pluto, Sag. Okay, so those are the ones that I have. But the Gen X karma is anything around relationships, structuring relationships, what are relationships, new perceptions on relationships, normalizing divorce, you know, coming out of the whole, you get married to one person, be with that person for everything. That's Gen X's karma. Just friendships overall, our perception on friendships. And then you'll see in their charts as well, right? When you look at the Neptune and when you look at the Capricorn placements as well, what's going on in there, because some of them then have Neptune in Sagittarius, okay, and then Uranus in Sagittarius, which is like sexual liberation and, you know, different perceptions on these types of things, right? And just like unique perceptions on these types of things. So there's that. Let's see. You're welcome. You said people try to shush you when you speak up. Oh my gosh. See, there's that. Okay, this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say about astrology. So I don't do predictive astrology, okay? Because in a way, we have to look at astrology as something that we actually want to break through, okay? Because it's the energetic code of the system, okay? I have talking code, as we say code, okay? So you want to break through what you've been imprinted on, because it's like you'll see whatever your overall life purpose is, you were always sent people to either put you down in that area, okay? You will notice, if you pay attention, you will notice that like whatever you're meant to be doing, it's like you will kind of get the oppositional energy, or like the energy that's trying to put you down, or in your situation trying to shush you, because it's like maybe part of your purpose is to speak, and part of your purpose is to open up the throat chakra, right? But it's like you'll see the way that the structure works is like it'll try to push you down, and the area usually you struggle in the most is the exact area that's like part of your life purpose. You'll notice this in people's stories, right? So that's a huge thing to pay attention to, because that's going to give you a hint about what your overall life purpose is. And then when you're kind of living in your life purpose, nothing else really, like, I don't want to say nothing else matters. It's just like you're kind of at that frequency of truth. You know what I mean? You're welcome. Midheaven and Rahu conjuncting the 10th house. So Rahu is your north node, and then your midheaven. That's nice. That's a very nice energy, because that kind of means like your overall life purpose, okay, is conjuncting your career. So you can actually make money out of your life purpose. Speaking of life purpose, right? So you can make money out of this. You know, it's about your midheaven and then your Rahu, your public life, right, is part of your life purpose, okay? You're meant to be in the public, engaging. Now, whether this is on a smaller scale, I've noticed sometimes the Rahu or like the North Node in the 10th house can be niche, okay? So you can become very well known in your niche. So let's say you're a lawyer and you're like a very well known lawyer, okay? Or whatever it is, right? So you can become like known in that niche, or you can go bigger, right? The energy is there in your favor. So it depends what you want to do with it. Let's see. What do I have to say about Pisces Sun, Scorpio rising with Leo moon? You said interesting combination. So definitely a dreamer. The Scorpio rising in there might make you want to hide, or like you might struggle to like put yourself out there. That's the thing, because it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like Scorpio energy is very aware, whether it's consciously they're aware, or whether it is like they're actually, whether it's consciously or like unconsciously, but usually turns into consciously as time goes on. They're aware of how energy works. So it's like, you know, I don't know, for that energy, for any water energy, my recommendation is if you're going to be out there doing something with the world, it has to kind of be niched in a way, right? Because then it's like you're protecting your energetic field. So those people who like kind of post their whole life and they post every aspect of their life, it's like, you know, that's too scattered energetically, right? Because you're picking up on that energy. Do you know what I mean? So it's really, really interesting. Leo moon's going to want to be seen though. I will say that much. You said that makes so much sense when you say about life purpose. Your life path is 3. Yeah, I felt like it has something to do. I was wondering if you had Gemini energy in your natal chart when I say about life purpose being aligned with what is hard, especially about speaking up. Yeah, you'll notice, like you will notice people, let's say, who are meant to be speaking struggle, let's say, with speech overall, or in your situation, like you mentioned, they might struggle with actually like being heard or whatever it is. That's a good way to know what you guys are meant to be doing. And that's why astrology is good, because it's like, even though, you know, here's the thing, I don't think we should be, I don't know, it's hard to explain, because it's like, it's really challenging to break out of the programming, right? Overall of the structure. I hope you guys are following. If not, it'll go in the subconscious and it'll make sense later, right? So it's hard to break through that, because you'll see astrology playing out, right, within people's lives, whether you're following it or not, like you'll see it somehow aligning. But that's because like a lot of the unconscious programming that we have comes from our placements, right? Hope you guys are able to follow. So this is why we want to learn it, so we can break out of it, right? So it will tell you, sometimes your charts will tell you like, okay, this is my life purpose, this is what I'm meant to do. But it'll also tell you the areas where you might struggle in, or the challenges, or the aspects. And it's like, you'll notice these aspects kind of just like repeat themselves, because it's in your field. This is what I was saying earlier, whether you're acting on the energy, or whether that energy is just attracted to you because it's in your energetic field overall. It's like chicken or the egg, you know? So it's like, this is why awareness is important, because you'll see it, right? And you don't want to get sucked into it. That's the thing. So it's like, it's kind of like the vibe of like, don't lose the plot, you know? That's sometimes what I think of, you know? It's like, it's easy to get sucked into things or situations, or get like zeroed in on something that you lose like the overall plot of like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So something to keep in mind, I guess. No, I don't, Dami. Thoughts on Mercury in Pisces, 12th house trine Pluto. Pluto's retrograde for you in Scorpio. So it's interesting. I don't know if you're still in the room, but everything we talked about in terms of like speaking up, you might struggle with that area, okay? Because Mercury in the 12th can struggle to be heard. And then you have it in Pisces. You'll be very poetic. You'll be good at poetry. You'll be good at singing. You'll be good at speaking in riddles. So those are going to be like your gifts, okay? So it'll just be a matter of pushing through that. Sometimes Mercury in the 12th struggles with speech overall, okay? So when they're younger, they might struggle to be heard, or they might struggle to, you know, actually kind of like verbalize what they're thinking, or like not just like literally be heard in terms of like you're speaking and no one hears you. Like that could be a part of it, but it's also like people to understand what it is that you're saying, because you're like up here, right? Like you're in the crown, you're in the ethers. So it's a very good energy for channeling as well when you have Mercury in the 12th house, and then it's karmic, okay? That's the thing with 12th house energy, it's karmic. So it's like, it's something that you're closing out in this lifetime, okay? Something to do maybe with your ideas and actually your throat chakra and actually speaking up. Like maybe there's like a fear of like, you know, that's another one, okay? That's like unconsciously lingering in the collective, maybe more so in the feminine energy. It's like, you know, fear of maybe being quote unquote persecuted for speaking, right? So that's another one. That's kind of like, I don't want to say a full-blown collective fear, because I can't say that it's collective, but it's like a feminine wound in the feminine energy field, okay? Whether, it doesn't matter what gender you're born into, it's just like something that's there. You say you're super proud of being a Capricorn rising. I love Capricorn people because you'll know that they've been through a lot, right? So it's like the Saturnian energy is kind of like, you know, it knocks you down 7 times, you get up 8, that quote, right? That's Saturn. So it's like, you know, when you know that you've overcome things, at that point, you just don't care anymore. Do you know what I mean? And at that point, you just feel like you could do anything, you know? So that's why Capricorn, like, is a good energy. Let's see. Hey, John, how are you doing? What's going on? Yeah, I love Capricorns. I love Capricorns. They're real. They don't waste time. They're not fake. They're blunt. They are, again, they've been through a lot. They might be intimidating, you know, like, you know, when you see like biker gangs and like whatever, right? Like that's like Capricorn energy, you know, but it's like inside they're like the biggest softie, right? They might have a little cute little doggy at home or whatever it is, right? So that's kind of like the vibe. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Would you have any advice for energy hygiene and maintenance from energy vampires or people who drain energy? Yeah, stay away from them if you can. So here's the thing, okay? This is what I'm going to say. This is what I've been thinking about lately, you know? I just got a crystal for the first time in like the longest time. It's so cute. I should have got it to show you guys, but the lighting isn't like the best, but it's like, it's the first one that I was drawn to in a really long time. And I was thinking to myself, and I was like, you know, when you first start out your spiritual journey, you externalize, like we all do it. You go through the journey, right? So you kind of put everything on like an external thing. Like when I get this thing, you know, this is going to protect my field, or like it's going to bring me this and it's going to bring me that. Like that's, I just think part of like the material plane is kind of when you're going through the 4th dimension, right? So when you're in that phase, that's how you think, you know, and then you kind of break through that. And then eventually you get to a point where you realize that literally everything is in your control. Literally everything is in your control. So it's like if an energy vampire comes into your vicinity, just be like, I don't want to talk to you. That's it. Like, don't talk to me. You know what I mean? You don't have to be rude, but you're like, no, like energetic barrier right away. Sometimes you can't avoid them, right? Sometimes you can't avoid them, but it's like, I find that a lot of the time we get drained when we give our power away to things, right? So maybe they trigger us, or maybe we get annoyed at something they say, or maybe we engage in an argument with them. It's like mosquito energy, right? That's kind of how people siphon your energy. It's like they're a mosquito that's poking at you, okay? So there's that, right? So just like not engaging with them, not taking the bait. And the more you train yourself, the more, you know, they kind of stop, or like sometimes you can't control it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. At the end of the day, we still are human, and the human part is going to come through, but it's just like training. The way that I'm seeing it, even psychically, is kind of like, you know, those like Zen masters, right? So there's that. And other things you can do is just like, honestly, in terms of energy vampires, cutting cords is always going to help, but it always comes back down to giving your energy, not your energy away, but giving your power away. Like it's in your solar plexus, right? So that's the way that I see energy vampires. And sometimes also with energy vampires, it's like, I don't know, maybe this is like a Scorpionic comment, but sometimes you have to let people think that they've won. Do you know what I mean? Just to protect your own energy. So it's like sometimes like you can't let the ego come into a situation. Like it's like an energy, I guess, manipulation hack, right? So it's like, let's say you've had an argument with someone and like they're in their corner and they're still thinking about it and they're like, oh my God, I'm so annoyed, whatever. And you're picking up on that energy. Sometimes you gotta neutralize it and you just message them and you're like, hey, sorry, or hey, what's up, or everything's good, like no hard feelings. And like, it's not so much be the bigger person. I don't think it's that. I see that sometimes as energy protection as well, right? Let's say it was like, it happened like right then and there. If you can't talk to them, then like it's done, right? Like it is what it is. But yeah, so those are some things that you can do. No, you don't have to super chat. I will get to you guys. I'm going to try to get to everyone. If I don't get to you guys, I'll get to you guys in the next one. You said, yes, North Node Leo, total opposite. What else are you guys saying in here? You'd rather know your weaknesses and make them stronger. Yeah, I think that's what, like, I don't know. Should I use the term successful? What, like, an aligned person? I don't know. Using, like, whatever term it is, right? What an aligned person, a successful person does is like you figure out what your weaknesses are and then you know what your blind spots are, right? And it's like you try to balance them. And that's why I like astrology, right? So it's like, you know, you see a placement in your chart. Okay, is it like this? How can I balance the energy to not be like that, right? Instead of being like a victim to it. We don't want to fall into victim energy. You know what I mean? Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Scorpio part wants to be hidden. Leo part wants to be out there. Balancing the two is hard. Absolutely. Yeah, I find those placements are hard. Like having like Leo in the 8th house or having Leo and Scorpio combinations or even Leo in the 12th house. These types of things. It's a struggle because it's like part of you wants to be out there and then part of you doesn't. So you gotta just pick which one it is, you know? You said that's right about energy vampires. Drain your energy, boss. Yeah, they literally do drain your energy. Where's your question, Deandra? Which one did I not see? Hi. You said Sun in Aquarius. Oh, it's because I go in order. So by the time you comment at the bottom, I'm still going in order from the top. Sun in Aquarius in the 8th house. Sun in the 8th house is usually something hidden with the father. Okay, that's kind of being brought to the surface. Sun in Aquarius, you're going to be unique. You're going to be quirky. Maybe the father was eccentric. Like maybe he was one of those like people who kind of just like spent a lot of time on his own. I don't know why I'm psychically seeing someone who's like in a room, like fixing like watches and like stuff like that. Something that's like kind of like in his own energy, doing his own thing. But yeah, maybe there's something about him you didn't see until later on in life. I find that 8th house people overall are kind of here to bring something to the surface that's within the family line. Indicator for creative and artistic gifts in natal charts. Yeah, so anything that's like 5th house, like I'm gonna say 12th house is also super creative. Water energy is creative. Depends what kind of creativity we're talking about, because Scorpio energy can kind of take like the darkness and turn it into something creative. But that's what I'm gonna say. Pisces, 12th house, like they're gonna be probably musically talented. Usually Mercury and Taurus is gonna have a nice voice if you want to sing. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, Leo energy overall. Leo needs to be seen. So Leo is Leo, right? Pisces in the 5th house is going to give you creativity. Pisces in the 2nd house, you can make money through your creativity. So yeah, there's a lot of different placements. You like Mercury even though you are a Capricorn, or you said you like Libra even though you are a Capricorn. Yeah, because it's cardinal. Cardinal energy usually gets along with each other. That's something that I've noticed as well. I've noticed that fixed energy gets along with fixed, and then mutable gets along with mutable. Fixed and mutable, I find that they don't really get along unless, again, there's mutable in one of the charts or fixed in one of the charts, because mutable energy can sometimes be flaky, and then that triggers the fixed energy. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, you'll notice like you will get along with other cardinal signs. If you're like a Libra, you'll get along with Capricorn, so you get along with Cancers. You'll also maybe get along with, well, I don't know if you'll get along with Aries. Aries are probably there to teach you karmically more than anything, but when you kind of neutralize the energy with Aries, you'll see that there's more similarities than differences, even though they are oppositional. So there's that. All right, you guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for being at my live. If you guys want your own reading, it's going to be on my website, okay, on the link in the description box below. If you're watching the replay, it's going to be on the tab of readings. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your likes, shares, and subscribes, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your evening.